Good afternoon once again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin, coming to you from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas. The show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues, as most of you know. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com. A new show is posted every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. New shows also appear on YouTube and numerous other media. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area. If you have questions or comments, you can send an email to bob@firedupmail.com. That is bob@firedupmail.com. Or leave a message on my office recorder, 702-257-1060, 702-257-1060. If you don't leave a message, I can't call you back. If you leave contact information, of course, I'll respond by email, text, or telephone. Questions directed to our guests will be forwarded. One other thing I wanted to add here, for clarity, I often paraphrase some of the copy out of police jargon, lawyer speak, and regional dialects into American English. So when I make a quote, it may not be the exact quote. I'm trying to rewrite it slightly to let regional viewers understand what we're talking about. I was just before we went on camera, I was sharing with my guest a incident some years back where when I ran the gun store in East Tropicana, we had problem with a guy couldn't pass a background check. They called me from the criminal history repository where they run the checks, and she said she can't get a hold of the guy. There wasn't a using workable phone number, etc. And I ended up calling I believe it was Jefferson. It was Jefferson Parish. I think it was Louisiana, might have been Mississippi. And I got one of the officers on the phone, and I said, we have this client, his name is whatever, and you listed on his background, he had a conviction for midnight murder. Is that a misdemeanor or a felony, says I? And he said, well, everybody knows what that means. That's for poaching. Regional dialect we're trying to get away from, so everybody is on the same page here. So, there are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, rarely covered by mainstream media. So we always present a few for our listeners' education. Most are good shootings. Sometimes they're questionable, sometimes they're just plain wrong, but they're all educational for those of you who carry a firearm or keep a firearm for self-defense. Another warning, individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law, so the advice given here might not apply in different jurisdictions. The incidents are as reported, except I generally eliminate the names of the participants. My guest today is a retired detective, police detective, Michael Bunker. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Been a while.
Yes, it has.
A little bit of your background, if you could, for listeners.
I'm a retired sergeant. I was employed for 40 years in a large police department. I've been both a patrol officer, a patrol sergeant. I've been a sergeant in narcotics, general assignment nights, which basically is detectives that handle everything that comes across the board until other people can get there if necessary, and organized crime.
You worked organized crime in Las Vegas?
I know, it's hard to believe.
Would you care to write a short book?
No.
No.
Some things should not be written down.
I've asked Mike that once a year for about 20 years now, and he always refuses. I'm sure it would sell a lot if you survived.
The surviving is the difficult part.
Anyway, this goes back to September 3rd this year. A couple days ago, as most of you know, if you follow the gun industry, Walmart announced it will discontinue the sale of handgun ammunition and also request that customers refrain from openly carrying firearms in stores, even where state laws allow that. This is their reaction to a mass shooting that claimed 7 lives in Odessa, Texas, and follows 2 other back-to-back shootings last month. One of them was at a Walmart store. The Bentonville, Arkansas-based discounter said Tuesday it will no longer sell handgun ammunition, including .223 caliber and .556 caliber, used in military-style weapons after it runs out of its current inventory. It will also discontinue handgun sales in Alaska. That takes them completely out of the handgun market. That was the only state they were already still selling handguns in. And focus on hunting rifles and related ammunition only. As handguns are the main tool that is used by citizens defending themselves, Walmart is sentencing hundreds of their customers to injury, sexual assault, and death each year. I can't imagine. We all know that criminals don't obey the gun laws anyway. They don't get guns from Walmart. They get them from stealing them from homes, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to get into that a little bit in a story. But I don't know, Mike, you think that will reduce?
That will absolutely
crime?
have no effect Walmart's stance. As far as their conversation about open carry, unless you're going hunting or something, someplace else like that where it's easy to do, I think carrying an open carry gun in public is stupid. Why paint a target on your back for a bad guy?
We've done several stories about that, and we have numerous cases where the open carrier that's happens to be standing in a bank or a Walmart gets shot when the robber comes in the door because he sees him as a threat and neutralizes the threat coming in the door. That's for another show. We've gotten into that a few times and fired up here. So for this first story, this is KFOR TV. Cassandra Sweetman was the reporter on this. Reported on the 28th of last month in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Police were called to a house on an alarm check and ended up shooting a man. When the officers arrived, they went up to the front door and knocked on it. Somebody from inside approached the front door with a gun in his hand. According to the Oklahoma police captain, his name is Bo Matthews. Good name for an Oklahoma captain, Bo Matthews. The officer stepped back and started shooting at this individual, the guy who came to the door. That's not exactly how the homeowner said he remembers it. The homeowner said he was sitting in his darkened living room with his gun in his hand, ready to protect his home from intruders due to the late night storm. There was a huge thunderstorm. A lot of the lights were blacked out in the town and so forth. Wind was blowing. Nobody could hear themselves think. While sitting there, he said a flash of lightning suddenly lit up the person standing on the porch from behind. The homeowner said it went from nobody on my porch to somebody on my porch, and within the silhouette, I could see completely a gun. He didn't declare who he was. If he did, I didn't hear it. The resident said he gave a warning, saw a flashlight cross the room, and that's when the shooting started. This is the homeowner talking. I made a split-second decision not to discharge my gun because I didn't have clear background. I couldn't see where my bullets would go, and I could not identify my target 100%. That's, again, quoting the homeowner. He retreated to the back of his house and called 911. When he couldn't reach the officers on his front lawn that way, he called the neighbor across the street who handed an officer his phone. The homeowner came out once he was told he would be safe. By the next afternoon, the resident hadn't slept and continues to clean up the mess left of his home, from the wind mostly, I'm sure. But he still says he holds no ill will. I got nothing bad to say about the officer or the Oklahoma City Police Department. He said they were doing a very tough job. In fact, he said he feels compelled to apologize for his part in the confusion. He hopes this will be a learning moment moving forward for other situations like this. The homeowner added, he was here to try to make sure my house was secure and trying to help me, so there's no way I can sit here and fault him. He just made a quick decision in the dark. He didn't know who I was. The two officers, by the way, have been put on administrative leave while this is being investigated. A lot of stuff here, Mike. I wanted to comment. Police find themselves in this type of situation, responding to unknown trouble calls all the time. Firing without a clear target is always a bad decision. But that being said, without actually being there, this is really tough to second guess these police officers.
I agree. Everybody did the best they could with what they had. The individual on the inside was responding to a perceived threat. The officers on the outside were responding to a perceived threat. It's incredibly lucky that nobody was seriously injured. The police, in responding to that, see a guy with a gun, they're going to respond as they have been trained, which is to defend themselves. The guy on the inside, he didn't do anything wrong either. He was responding. It's lucky, fortunate that nobody was injured in this. I don't think there's a wrong to it. What the police officers wait until they get shot at, the guy in the house perceiving a threat had a gun. How can that be considered wrong if he's afraid that he's going to be injured?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really tough situation for the officer and the person. I'm the victim here, the homeowner, who I guess is the victim. I can't imagine this happening in our litigious society. If this happened in Vegas, there'd be 40 lawyers lined up to sue the police department over this. And the guy wants to have nothing to do with that. He understands the officers, and he's acting like a total gentleman about it. And I applaud him for his actions in this case. We're going to run some space now for some of our friends and associates of Fired Up with Bob Irwin. First, I'd like to mention Freestyle Martial Arts. They're at 5693 South Jones Boulevard in Las Vegas. They are a great martial arts studio. They teach a lot of UFC fighters and things. And you can reach them at 702-551-90. I'm sorry, 551-9009. Said that wrong last week. I hope somebody didn't get a lot of calls. 702-551-9009. And we have CCS Gunsmithing. Chris Eifelt, who runs the NRA auctions for the Friends of NRA, runs this shop. Great gunsmith. He's on Rainbow Boulevard right at Sahara. You can catch him at 702-365-1732. That's 702-365-1732. And Jerry Creed. This slide on the screen talks about estate planning. Jerry also specializes in firearms trusts, particularly Class 3 trusts. If you intend, in our topsy-turvy world with all the laws changing, to leave your firearms, particularly Class 3 firearms, to your heirs, you need to call Jerry. He's at 702-806-7777. That's 702-806-7777. And Don Green, my normal, if I call Don Green normal, I'll get sued. Don is a frequent guest on the show. He's an attorney who does firearm litigation, We have worked together numerous times. He handles particularly well government refusals to issue CCW permits or things like that, where it's a technical thing. You haven't committed a crime, but you're having a problem with the government. They won't renew your FFL, that sort of thing. You can reach Don at 702-409-8239. 702-409-8239. And my friend Maggie Mordaunt, the world's greatest instructor, along with her husband. You can reach Maggie at 702-376-5900. I think it says from here.
375.
375? Okay, well, that's close.
Your
I got
eyes
my
are going.
wrong, well, the slide's too small. If you go to any web search engine and punch in CCW Maggie, MAGGIE, you will get her websites and her contact information. Great teacher. Recommend her highly. And where I will be usually every Friday afternoon having lunch, Ricardo's. They are the best, by far, Mexican restaurant in town. They're at 4930 West Flamingo. That's Flamingo and Decatur. They do all sorts of work for group meetings and presentations and so forth and so on. You can reach them at 702-227-9100. 702-227-9100. There we are. I'm going to add, as I'm getting into this, add Battlefield Vegas. It's a gigantic range here on the Strip, just behind Circus Circus. They have the most amazing collection of things you can do. They have miniguns you can shoot in their indoor range, and firearms you've only seen on TV, full automatic shotguns, all sorts of things. They have an outdoor facility where you can actually drive a tank, and if you want to pay for the car, you can drive the tank over a car and shoot from helicopters. They just do all sorts of stuff that is absolutely beyond belief. I would strongly suggest looking them up. Battlefield Vegas range and just entertainment park. They will be, they are becoming now the go-to range for my show, and they're selling my memorabilia, books and hats and shirts and so forth at their facility there on Circus Circus Drive. Okay, now we are back to, let me see how time is running. Oh, we're okay, we've got 10 minutes. NBC TV in Dallas-Fort Worth reported on 8/28 in Dallas, Texas, an 84-year-old repeat robbery victim shot, and I'm laughing already because you got to get this story, shot an attempted home invasion suspect who tried to break into his home early Wednesday morning. Dallas PD officers responded to the residential street near Loop 12 and Interstate 35E around 1:30 in the morning. That's a picturesque sounding address. The elderly resident grabbed his gun when he heard someone trying to break into his house, where his 76-year-old wife was also sleeping. He fired several shots, striking the would-be intruder, who he said was also armed with a handgun. The suspect escaped. He turned and fled immediately, as people do when you shoot at them. Most people, if more people would shoot at the robbers or invaders, they would think twice about breaking into their homes. Hey, this person may be armed, the resident said. He's talking about him. He may be armed when the guy breaks in, which he was. The intended victim, who asked his picture and personal identification be withheld, said he believed he looked like an easy target, and that's why crooks have come after him. At 84, I would think his wife is spring chicken, 76. He was robbed before and said he decided it won't happen to me again. The 84-year-old said police seized the gun used to compare it with the wounds, the wounds on the man when police found him later at a hospital. The guy went to getaway driver drove him to the hospital, or he showed up, and police could put that together at 1 in the morning. Here's a guy with a gunshot wound where they just had a call that somebody got shot at a house. Duh. The intended victim said he also kept a gun at home in the city where the police force is hundreds of officers smaller than it was a few years ago. He says, I can't be everywhere, they can't be everywhere, referring to the police. Sometimes you've got to take responsibility you're on your own to protect your own. The police decided to comment, to confirm anything about the investigation or any arrest so far on Wednesday. First off, listeners need to be aware that this is a Texas case where the citizens may use deadly force to defend property under most circumstances. I certainly respect this gentleman's viewpoint. In most jurisdictions, the shooting would be problematic. And speaking to the press, to make a court defense of his action, that makes a court defense of his actions extremely difficult. Imagine if this was somewhere else other than Texas, and he's now being sued, and he's told the press that he has the gun because he's going to shoot somebody if they come in and he's tired of being ripped off. That may all be true, but that's not what you want to be saying to the media when, if this was any place but in Texas, you'd be getting sued out of your socks over shooting somebody who didn't shoot you first or whatever. You know, they're going to make up that, you know, their poor victim robber is the bad guy, is the good guy here, and the homeowner is the bad guy. Don't talk to the media. As far as the case goes, Mr. Bunker,
I think it's a good case. Like you say, there are all kinds of problems if you were someplace else, particularly with his talking, but an individual who's 84 years old or infirmed or disabled or anything else has a limited ability to defend themselves from an intruder. What can you do except have a handgun, an 84 handgun or rifle or shotgun? A 84-year-old person defending against an intruder with a baseball bat is ludicrous. He's going to lose almost every time. So I think it's lucky he was in Texas with what he said. Keep your mouth shut. Let the police do their own investigating and tell them what happened in a short, abbreviated way. You don't need to get into particular details that because you were excited, you forgot something. Happens all the time.
people do tend to give crappy interviews right at the time of the incident. I've brought that up on several shows. Nobody ever knows exactly what happened. They get everything in the wrong sequence. They have no idea how many shots they're fired, et cetera, et cetera. We've been down that road ourselves, Mike, on cases. And it is interesting that knowing the personality we're dealing with here, with this gentleman, there'd be no point in trying to talk him out of what he said, because he's right, and he got robbed before, and this is it, and I ain't taking nothing from nobody, and I would do him again if I had a chance, and et cetera, et cetera. You turn, any place but Texas, you turn a defensive shooting into an offensive shooting by your glee over, wouldn't have glee, I'm sure, if the guy died, but I'm not sure that's the case. I shouldn't be guessing about that one. I know people like this, I'm sure we all do, that are elderly. When I say elderly, I mean older than me, and look at this and go, dag nabbit, this ain't gonna happen, and I'm gonna shoot the SOB, and he deserved it, and that's it. We are, we haven't got quite enough time to do the one other story I was going to do today, but we're going to have Mike back here next week and get into a couple of other things. So I want to remind listeners to check out our recent shows. You will find them at firedupwithboberwin.com. The commercials or the people that are being sponsors or friends or associates of the store are the ones that keep us on the air. I would be delighted if you would, when you go to their places of business that you mentioned, you heard it on Fired Up. And again, want to remind everybody listening to this to take a run by Battlefield Vegas. You will be absolutely amazed. Capitalism wins every time. By the way, Battlefield is also now selling all my logo merchandise, the hats and books and so forth. So we can have a vendor locally carrying them, so you can go by there and get a Fired Up hat or Fired Up t-shirt or my book. And I'm actually now started this morning working on a new CCW carry book. So quit badgering me. I'll have one in print in a couple of weeks, hopefully. Anyway, we'll be back next Thursday on our website, Fired Up with Bob Irwin, and on YouTube at the American Guns and Glory Network, and numerous other media, TV and radio stations all across the United States carry the show. When watching any media, just click subscribe on any of those media things. There is a little button there on your computer, and a new show will be sent out to you on your computer or phone automatically every Thursday evening. Thank you so much for watching Fired Up. Have a good afternoon.